Well, here we go again talking about one of the biggest anime the TikTok generation will ever know. But as we all know, Demon Slayer has been going crazy for the past couple of years. But what I've been seeing a lot recently is people saying that Demon Slayer might be overrated. And if you like anything, you can't help but take that as a hard diss at anything or any series that you like. You see, there are for sure a lot of good things about the Demon Slayer series, but also there may be some things that aren't quite up to par. So now I'm just gonna take this time and we have to talk about it. Is Demon Slayer actually overrated? Now look, my answer is gonna be at the very end, so you should stay tuned. However, let me give you both sides as to why it can be and why it's also not. There is a perfect and logical reasoning out there why Demon Slayer is not overrated. You may hear people every now and then say things such as Demon Slayer is the best anime ever, which I mean personally I really don't agree, but it's really hard for me not to put Demon Slayer in at least the top 10 range. And partially it's because Demon Slayer does a lot of things good that some shows simply don't. You see, as impactful a story could be, I would say that Demon Slayer does not have that aspect. But there are factors that Demon Slayer does very well at, and it kind of makes up for the story not being that grand. I mean, let's just call out the elephant in the room and say it. Demon Slayer has the best animation, period. And that's simply because of this studio over here, Ufotable. Just to make this clear, Ufotable is basically strictly working on Demon Slayer alone. On the screen here, you can see they do have other shows that they've done very well at. However, the big banger is Demon Slayer. Some people will for sure argue that MAPPA is a better animation studio than Ufotable is. But to me personally, MAPPA is simply number 2. MAPPA to me does better at making art. Still images of characters not moving that looks very, very good. However, when it comes to these assets having to move, I believe Ufotable does a better job. And to me personally, that is what animation is. Now, even though I can sit here and harp on the animation all day long, I don't think that's the only thing that makes Demon Slayer stand out. If you're a teen, maybe even an adult, you'll probably realize that this animation is better than other shows, which I do agree. But another sneaky truth is Demon Slayer is simply simple. I understand for most animes that's going to be a huge turnoff. But it is true, Demon Slayer simply does not overcomplicate what it is. The series is very basic about a boy who lost his sister because she became a demon. And of course, to bring her back, you need to go kill the head demon that caused this. I mean, the story does not get much further than that. Of course, every character within the series is going to have their own personal vendetta, but to be honest, their main ambitions is not why we watch. You may like those said characters, however, you do follow one protagonist that is the main center of attention. And if we really want to talk about the simplicity, it gets even further than that. For example, you know that this is a sword fighting anime. Even though the demons themselves don't really use swords, the main characters do. However, the breathing techniques that you see aren't actually real. It kind of shocked me too finding that out. When you see a character such as Tanjiro summoning a wave of water, that's not actually what he's doing. This is just a visual aspect that's placed on the animation itself so we can visually see what he's trying to do. Which, you know, kind of defeats the purpose when the demons do what they do. I mean, just make it real, but whatever. And finally, the biggest factor, which I may not really love, but it is true, Demon Slayer is a family-friendly anime. Now look, I understand the characters get hurt and even die in the show, but at the end of the day, what happens to some of these characters is still family friendly. Just a quick story to give an example. One day I was out in Florida. Don't ask where I live in this area or why I even went to Florida, you'll never know. But anyway, one day I was out here in this beautiful place, Disney World. And while I was out there just minding my own business, I happened to notice someone else wearing a Demon Slayer shirt. Unfortunately, I didn't have my own drip on at the time, so whatever. But I simply told the lady, assuming that she was the mother of a family of 4, that her shirt that she had was simply clean. And she responded back to me saying that yeah, me and my family got into anime and we watch it every single week. It was kind of bizarre to see someone that can drop their kids off in daycare also watching Demon Slayer. But I think this is a real good example of what I'm trying to get at. All the jokes and funny hoo-has that Demon Slayer gives us, I'm not really a fan of. But that's just because I personally don't like it. Does not mean it's bad. So for the lady I just talked about, it's a great example of, hey, I can watch something with my kids that we can all enjoy. And I think that's something that Demon Slayer does great at because it's a family-friendly show. And I mean, it does have the numbers to prove it. Now look, I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you because it does no good for me and especially not you. Even though I will say that Demon Slayer is not only one of the best animes I've ever seen, but also franchises, Demon Slayer also has a couple of things it simply doesn't do right. And I don't want to say that it's a 0. I mean, that's simply not the case. However, some things that people publicly complain about are actually true. As I've mentioned before, Demon Slayer has a very rough story. And look, for most people, it's perfectly fine, it's simple, you don't really care. The problem that occurs is Demon Slayer has such a simple story, there's a lot of dead parts. Points within the story that the animators or even the manga creator can continue to add in filler. And what sucks even worse is some portions of the anime feels like it's a filler even though it's not. Now, I'm not saying that a show has to have a riveting story and constant climaxes every single arc, but Demon Slayer does a very good job at having lows. There are portions of some of the arcs you can sit there and realize that, hey, nothing's really happening. And if you're a fan of jokes and comical humor, then you're perfectly fine. But how many times are you going to come back and watch this part? Most people realize that Demon Slayer has a lot of high peaks, especially within their fight scenes. But next thing you know, there's a lot of low peaks, especially points where there's nothing happening in the story. Let's just be completely honest, this arc right here had nothing going on. The only time that anything eventful really happened was preparing for the next movie. And that's something that Demon Slayer unfortunately lacks. Again, it's simply not for everyone, but it is a large amount. But otherwise, I really don't want to sit here and crash on the show. At the beginning of the video, we asked, is Demon Slayer overrated or underrated? And if I gave a drum roll for the answer you want to hear, Demon Slayer is probably underrated. And I know that sounds crazy, especially the numbers that it hits. But you have to realize that this show and series has one specific objective. And with that goal being so simple, they can put their arts and craft into something else, such as the animation. There are some shows that are specifically focused on the story, therefore your action is very limited. And some shows don't even have a story in mind at all. So whether you're going to like it or not, Demon Slayer is most likely underrated. But of course, I want to hear what you have to say in the comments down below. But in the meantime, as you and I wait for this movie, if you want some more Demon Slayer content, I have something for you over here. Thank you guys for all the love and support, especially on Patreon. And I'm going to give you some more bangers here in the near future. So until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you over there. Take care.